Welcome back to The Outright Effect, a podcast in which unique perspectives challenge us to be better versions of ourselves. I'm Shelley.
And I'm Tempsy.
And today we're going to be talking about, I guess, our history and our thoughts about skincare routines. So this is something that I, from time to time, will post about on my YouTube channel and Instagram page. But I know there are a bunch of different, viewpoints or routines or just things, thoughts that people have on this topic. So we just wanted to talk about a little bit about what our current routines are today and maybe how we came to learning what we know, in 2020. But anyways, so
Well, some of us haven't
Tempsy.
or learned anything.
Well, I mean, it's learning something, right? I don't
Yeah.
think if you're doing anything, that's kind of learning something, right?
I'm washing my
Um,
face.
see, exactly. Some people may not. I don't know. Um, so Tempsy, why don't you share a little bit about how you first were introduced to skincare at all? Like, how did you learn about it? Maybe like as a kid growing up or whatever. Like, where did you see it?
Honestly, my parents just told me that I needed to wash my face and brush my teeth every night. And so that was kind of my routine. I don't remember like what I used to use really. But I just knew that if I didn't wash my face, I was definitely going to break out. And so I think I probably used like Clearasil or Neutrogena or one of those well-known, brands at the time. They were all like all over commercials at the time. And this is also, I did have bad acne as a youngster. I think in junior high through high school, I had acne. And this was right around the time that Proactive came out. And when you're that age, you just want clear skin so bad that you'll almost do anything. But this was the time that when you saw something on TV and they were advertising it kind of like the ShamWow, super salesy. And it I don't know, the perception in my life anyway was that most of that stuff was a scam because they would be like, oh, money back guarantee, and you only have to pay 3 payments of $20. And it just seemed like it was too good to be true. So my parents were not open to buying that off of a TV ad. And so I don't, I just used whatever worked, Clearasil, whatever it was. But I do remember that my mom had really clear skin as I was growing up. She may have had, breakouts when she was younger, but I never really knew my mom to have breakouts. And she was the primary fixture in my life. So she didn't really do anything extra. Even now, she has great skin, minimal wrinkles. But what I do remember, what did kind of like spark my interest really young was that her ex-husband took like 30, or no, her ex-husband's mom took like 30 minutes to complete her skincare routine while she was like sitting in bed. She had already washed her face, she was ready to go to sleep, and she went through like, oh my goodness, I can't even tell you how many bottles of creams, lotions, serums. I don't even know if serums were around at the time, but she went through a lot of stuff. And I was just like, what is she doing? But looking back, she did look very young, even up until a very, old age. So, I mean, it must have worked for her, but who knows? She could have also had good genetics, but she was just trying to um, make sure, like preventative maintenance, I guess, that she didn't age as quickly. But what I also remember is that when she was going to school, they used to kind of like give kids the paddle if they weren't sitting up straight. And so she grew up in a time where women were very prim and proper, had to be very presentable, be very feminine, and not cross any boundaries for women. And so I feel like she was just really into making sure she looked perfect for her husband and, for the world. So, but honestly, it didn't really make a huge impact on me other than the fact that I thought it was not strange, but different, if that makes any sense, because I just didn't see that in my day-to-day world. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like that would have been your first exposure to someone who had a maybe more extensive skincare routine. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, so, as you were talking, I had maybe like a couple of thoughts that came to mind that I think, as we continue this conversation might help a little bit to sort of, not full on elaborate on, but, um, just grab some of those details. So like, let's say, for example, I mean, you mentioned, being concerned with breakouts when you were younger, or like kind of that whole thing. When would you say you started to like, think about, oh, I should wash my face or else I might break out? Like, was that like later elementary school, like fifth, sixth grade, or were you already like in high school by that time?
I think I started in elementary school because I was a kind of an early developer um, physiologically. So I started breaking out a little bit earlier from what I understand to most kids, if that makes sense. So I do remember elementary school, it was a little bit earlier that I started to get breakouts.
Yeah. And and I guess the other thing is that when you're talking about kind of seeing that like female figure do an extensive like skincare routine before bed, was it because like you happen to like maybe spend nights over, there and she was around and you're kind of like walking by the room and you're like, oh, she's like putting all this stuff on her skin and stuff.
You're exactly right. I used to hang out there quite a bit, and I used to spend the night. And they kind of had a big house, so I was scared to stay in the guest room by myself. So I would sleep in her room with her, and she would be like having the TV on, and she would just put all of her stuff on, and I'm like sitting there
What's going on? Yeah, what
like
are you
giving her the
doing?
side eye, like, what are you doing? And I would ask her questions, and it was interesting, but that was really the only exposure I got to that extensive routine, like you mentioned before.
Mhm. Yeah.
What about you, Shelley? What was your first introduction to skincare?
So, some of the reasons why I asked that question is because I know when you and I were talking about skincare kind of on the side, you're like, oh, it's something that I never really cared about. But I'll be honest with you, I never did a thing to my skin until high school because I never
Mhm.
had a breakout problem. So, that's kind of, why I was asking too, like, how did you become aware of it, right? So like ads, I mean, I think I saw the same ads and all that kind of stuff as well, like, maybe in magazines that we had, whatever they were called. I don't remember what kind of magazines we looked at back then, but I was watching TV, like with my parents or whatever. There are a lot of ads, and I think that's the first time I saw anything, but I don't think I actually used anything until much later. So nobody told me I had to like necessarily like wash my face. Like to me it was part of like taking a bath. It
Mhm.
wasn't like I had a special soap that I washed my face with. I just took a bath and like my whole body was getting clean at that point, right?
It's
So,
funny you say that because a big difference between, how I grew up and how I noticed my husband and a lot of people even here in Hawaii grew up is um, I grew up taking showers in the morning. It was an opportunity to wake up, get the water on your face, and then of course you wash your face in there. But most people in Hawaii, as far as I know, usually shower at night because you want to get into a clean bed with a clean body. And so at night, I had a routine. They, they when it was time for bed, or close to time for bed, my parents would say at a really young age, like early junior high, early elementary school, they would say, okay, it's almost time for bed. Go brush your teeth or wash your face and brush your teeth. And so I think it was just something to have a nightly routine before it got into, oh, I have acne, I need to do something about it. Because there would be times where I'd be like moaning and groaning, like, I don't want to wash my face and brush my teeth. I just want to stay here and watch this show with you guys. And they would be like, once I started breaking out, they would say, hey, this is going to help prevent breakouts. Like, you got to make sure that you go in there and take care of your skin. But it didn't go beyond that, like washing. But that totally makes sense. At night, you would just take a shower, take a bath.
bath,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But even like in the morning, so I feel like on the flip side, where if you're taking a shower in the morning, that's when you're washing your face. I never actually like took soap to my face in the morning until
Interesting.
actually maybe until college, to be honest with you, because I never woke up with my face feeling like super oily or anything like that. So I think I would just like wipe down my face with water, which actually like today, what I've been seeing like other people do with like skincare wise, it's actually a thing now where people aren't doing like a full on like soap, washing your face with soap kind of thing in the morning. But yeah, I would like, kind of like wipe my face down with water, or maybe like some other like, because I think back then a lot of those little like pads that came in like a tub of like 30 or whatever, that was popular, right? Like
Yep.
I might do like that kind of thing and brush my teeth and then go to school, but I wasn't like with soap like washing my face.
Mhm.
But, I mean, same thing. I think my very first exposure was advertisements and all that kind of stuff. But my mom, and I think stereotypically, I guess we'll say it that way. I think stereotypically, a lot of Asian women, my grandma didn't. My grandma on my dad's side didn't, because I was around her a lot growing up. I never saw her do any kind of skincare, anything like in my life. But
Interesting.
my mom was and still is like, she spends a ton of money on skincare. She and I may be in competition right now on how much money we spend on skincare. But I think one of the reasons why she cared so much about it is because I think in a previous episode I might have mentioned that I'm adopted and like that kind of stuff. But before my parents decided to go through that process, and back in like the mid to early 80s when my mom was going through this, she tried every like fertility remedy or whatever that they had available back then, which probably isn't what it is today, right? So in taking all these like pills and whatnot, it ended up like some of these things I think she took made her more sensitive to the sun. So she ended up with super splotchy, like sun damaged skin. And I think
Oh,
that's one of the reasons why she was so into skincare when I was a kid, because those effects started to come through. And that's probably why I was like, oh, my mom's using a face mask. Looks kind of weird, but
right.
whatever. She does it all the time, right?
Yeah,
Because she was trying to like get rid of those spots, which, yeah, she spends a ton of money on skincare today. She still has those spots. They're just so dark, by that point.
right.
I think when she was growing up, I mean, my mom was born in the 40s. Like sunscreen wasn't really a thing. Like you're a kid, you ran out outside in the sun, you stayed in the sun a lot. She grew up on Kauai. It's kind of like country, quote unquote, like country town over there. So a lot of it was just like, you're outside, you're climbing a tree or whatever. So they were never wearing sunscreen. That probably contributed to it. But yeah, so that was kind of like my introduction to that. My mom was always using like, I mean, essences. It's funny. Like I'm using an essence today. I'll buy a mask and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like my mom.
You're so funny.
Yeah, and I would ask her about it too as a kid, like, what are you doing? Or like, why do you have that thing on your face? I mean, it was my mom, so you feel comfortable just like
Of
saying these
course.
things. Plus, when you're a kid, you don't have a filter, so you're just like asking these random questions. But
Right.
she's had those like micro needling devices that she'll like roll on her face. That's a little bit more recent. She wasn't doing that when I was like a really young kid, but maybe when I was in high school or college, she had all these like devices to like put stuff all over her face. I don't think she does all of those things anymore. I mean, now she's in her 70s. She's probably just like, whatever, I don't work anymore. And so, but I know she does try to use a lot of creams and ones that sort of like try to help lighten and even out skin tone. But she also wore like a ton of makeup, I think, to kind of, even it out with foundation and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was something that I was pretty used to seeing. She also had permed her hair for like most of her life. So she had like a head full of curlers like every single night when I was a kid too. So
Wow.
yeah, it's just funny. And then she told me like, you should get a perm. And I'm like, no, that is, I would never. And I have never, and no, and that's not anything bad about anyone who does get a perm, but my hair is naturally like straight. I'm not trying to like, sorry, this is a slight tangent, but just to paint the picture, my hairstylist has done my mom's hair a few times, like while my mom's person was like on vacation or whatever.
Mhm.
And she compares my mom's hairstyle, like tight, like short hair with tight curls, to broccoli. Like that's her analogy. She's like, your mom
Oh.
has like a broccoli hairstyle. And I was like, yeah, you're kind of right. It does, it is like these tight
Aw.
curls of short hair. So, anyways, if I were to see that and think that was a perm, like, no, thank you. I'm good. I like my hair straight and
That's your
longer
exposure
than,
to perms, right?
yeah,
That's like your
right.
main exposure to
Yeah, it wasn't like, nice beachy waves or anything like that. It was like
Yeah.
these really tight curls on like basically like a bob haircut, right? I'm like,
You know
no, no, no,
what?
no, no, I'm
That might
good.
be a whole other episode because I have gotten a perm.
Oh,
So
you
we'll have
have
to talk about our hair
hair stuff.
history.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I got a lot of hair history. I just don't have a lot of skin history. But I will say some of the things that you mentioned, like that little contraption with the pokey things,
Hmm.
I don't remember what you called it, but that used to be a thing. And when I saw them popping up again, just
Oh
like you
God.
mentioned, I was like, isn't that like a blast from the past? Why am I remembering that that used to be a thing? And I used to look at it when I was younger, be like, what is this? Like, is
A
this
torture
serious?
device. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was like a torture device. And so when it started to get back into, popularity, I was like, oh, that's what it's for.
I was just gonna say that it still scares me today.
Does it?
I cannot. My friend had one. It was like a sample one, so not one that you'd actually put to your face. And I rolled it on my hand, and I was like, why?
Did it hurt?
It did hurt, but I think it's because I was doing it too slowly. Like, I don't know. I have a, I mean, you already know, I have a weird relationship with needles and anything like sharp. So I
Yes.
think that's why I was just like, and then you
I
just
did
rub
not
this all over
relate
your
the two.
face.
I did not relate the two, the needles. But that's funny. It's interesting
Mm,
that it hurts. The other thing I was thinking about, speaking of, your mom trying fertility drugs and having kids, I realized that, this may be the time, or maybe I should have started earlier on a skincare regimen because once I had a kid, I aged like 20 years, it feels like, So I just feel like I think that I do need to have some sort of skincare method, but I just can't wrap my mind around it. But
yeah, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about that in today's episode. I don't know. We'll
I
see how
hope
this
so. I
goes.
mean,
Yeah. And then I guess like one last thing I'll mention about like introduction in my introduction to skincare is that kind of maybe sort of like your experience, Tempsy. I've heard from friends who had experienced like really bad acne. And I think that's how I started to hear about like drugstore products. I mean, we're young at the time. We couldn't really like go out and shop for whatever we wanted to. So I mean, yeah, same thing like Clean and Clear, Neutrogena. I feel like those are super popular brands everybody talked about back then. And I was just lucky enough not to have like skincare issues like how they had. Like I didn't really like a breakout was like one pimple for me. Like it was never really
right,
crazy. So that's something that I'm super like lucky and thankful to not have had to go through all of that. But I mean, my skin would occasionally be oily, more so like around my nose, on my forehead. But yeah, like I said, it was never really bad. And like some people might actually be mad that I even refer to them as breakouts because of how mild they are. But even my esthetician today, like sometimes I'll go in, I don't go to her a lot, but sometimes I'll go in, I have a couple of little things, and she's like, oh, this is like your version of a breakout.
oh man, must be nice. I not only had breakouts, but over time it takes a toll on your skin. So I have discoloration all through my neck, on my jawline, and even on my chest area because I just broke out so much. And I was young, so I didn't know how to handle it. So there were times when I was like picking at it, and it just, it can cause big problems. Luckily, I heard over time some of the discoloration can kind of disappear or like lessen over time if you take care of your skin and you exfoliate, not super frequently. You and I had a conversation about that and you gave me some good advice. But yeah, that's growing up, that was really my only concerns. There were times when I had oily skin, like you said, every once in a while. But for the most part, I think I was just so concerned about the breakouts that I really didn't, you know, consider the type, you know, in quotes, type of skin I had, right? I was just so worried about breakouts and clearing my skin up that I didn't really, take a look at myself and be like, what kind of skin do I have? Do I have oily skin? I think I have oily skin, but I don't really know. It could just be the humidity here in Hawaii. It could be, it could be anything. And so I think I just focused way too much on that.
And I think there are some interesting things about that as well that maybe I'll talk about later on in this episode. I just recently saw like an ad on like social media and stuff like that, and it kind of reminded me of it. And it's something that I want to recommend that you try once we're able to like kind of do whatever we want again.
Okay.
But yeah, we can go into detail a little bit later, maybe as we're talking about like what we do today.
Okay.
Did you have any, would you say, other than things that you've already mentioned, would you say that you had any other influences related to skincare? Like, were your friends talking about something that you're like, oh, maybe I should try that?
Honestly, are you talking about when I was younger or more now?
I guess either.
So when I was younger, I feel like my friends were more concerned about makeup than anything else. They weren't really, I mean, I grew up in California. The weather was pretty, even keeled most of the year. It got a little bit cold in the winter, but the temperature or the weather, the air humidity didn't really change too much throughout the year. So if any of my friends did any kind of skincare, anything, it was to prevent breakouts, as far as I can tell, and as far as I can remember. I mean, hey, friends from elementary school, I'm sorry, I have a horrible memory, so I may be missing and forgetting something, but I just feel like, for the most part, people were so concerned about breakouts more so than anything else, and then makeup to cover it up. And then, of course, when you're younger, you always want to experiment with makeup, and that we washed our faces, but that was pretty much it. As I've gotten older, I remember out of high school, or maybe while I was in high school, my mom's friend was selling Mary Kay. Do you remember Mary Kay? Is that is that a
Yep, I do
skincare?
remember it.
Okay.
I think it's kind of like a, oh gosh, I forget all the other ones that are like Avon. I think it's like that kind of thing
Yes,
where, yeah, they have some skincare, some makeup, and then it's more so like catalog ordering and that kind of
that's
stuff.
exactly
Um,
what I'm talking
and I
about.
do remember maybe about a little less than 10 years ago, there is a Mary Kay like office here on Oahu. I don't know if it's still
Oh,
there, but at the time there was. And one of my friends was getting married, I remember, and they kind of had like a, if you want to call it like a bridal shower, sort of like bring your friends for like a like skincare makeup session or whatever. So yeah, Mary Kay, I remember that. I've gone to one of their things before.
I remember those. Those they did that for like Tupperware. They did that for skincare. They did that for all kinds of things. Yeah, I think I've been to one of those before. For I don't remember who it was for, but the only thing I ordered through that person, I think it was my mom's friend who sold Mary Kay, was foundation, because it was a better foundation than what I had found in the drugstores. But beyond that, more recently, I've noticed that a lot of people sell skincare products. And, I've seen what we have friends that sell Rodent and Fields. I have a friend who sells Monet, but for me, it's like overwhelming because I just don't know enough about it to say this is what I want it to be. You know what I mean? But those I would say capture the majority of my skincare influence. But there have been moments, and you, honestly, because I know you're always going to these events where they have skincare opportunities to try different products and things like that. So you've given me some feedback as well on what I can do. But that's kind of the extent of it. And there have been some instances where I've done some research and I'm, going on Amazon and looking at reviews, or just looking at reviews everywhere. And then I pick something that I'm like, okay, I'm just going to use this as moisturizer. Because the last time I went to my esthetician, she said my skin is like real thirsty, it's so dry. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just try this at night. And I just didn't keep up with it because I didn't know if it was really doing anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't feel like I have that natural instinct or that intuitive um, understanding of how to evaluate if your skin is getting better, because I didn't even know my skin was dry. She told me. So it's hard. That's why it's kind of hard for me to try to like navigate all of this.
Yeah, yeah. And so kind of, you know, adding on to what Tempsy said about maybe like my personal exposure to skincare and that kind of stuff. So I mean, I feel like back when I was in high school, there were definitely the folks or the girls at high school who were like super into makeup and like that kind of stuff. You know, I knew them, but I don't think we were necessarily like close friends to like share secrets on like what makeup we're using or, you know, anything like that. And I think I personally had a super hard time. And also, I mean, we're talking maybe like late 90s and that kind of stuff. And I mean, just as a note, not as a full-on conversation that we should go into, but nobody was making no drugstore brand and a lot of department store brands. Nobody was really making foundation or anything like that for people who were Asian. Like to be honest, it's more of
Hmm.
like a recent thing where a lot of brands are expanding their lines to help more skin tones. So anything that I like, one, like I mentioned, we were in high school. I might not even have had a job at the time. I wasn't going to buy a bunch of random stuff that was going to like look super obvious on my face and not like match my skin tone. Like that doesn't make any sense. So I think, at that point, like I was curious about foundation, but I was like, I can't even really try it out if it's like, on the CVS counter or whatever. Like I can't open it up and put it on my face.
Right.
Like I'd have to buy it and take it home, right? So I think I just gave up on that, to be honest with you. And
Hmm.
I just went straight for like things that I thought were less risky, like eyeshadow or black eyeliner, because clearly you're like, it's black eyeliner, or like mascara or something, right? Or like clear lip gloss. You're like, I don't really need to test this out to see if the color's right. It's clear. But otherwise, yeah, like in today's world, and maybe even like up to 10 plus years ago, people started posting a lot of videos about all this stuff on YouTube. And that's when I finally got a chance to watch people talk about their and a lot of different experiences with makeup. And that was my exposure. And I mean, it is a lot, right? It's a lot of information because everybody's talking about different products and how they're using it, and it's all like different. Everyone has their own take on it. But I think that was finally the chance I had for like a load of information to finally come my way of like stuff I was actually looking for. Because back then, I feel like, or maybe it was just what I coincidentally came across, but it was a lot of Asian people. So I was like, oh my God, finally I know like how to think about foundation or like what colors might look okay on me or whatever. Like that was kind of like the first like introduction to it, because literally everyone in magazines talking about like putting on makeup in your eye crease. I don't have one of those. They just don't exist on my face. Like I don't even know like what can I even do about that? Nothing. So, finally there are these other folks out there, like these other ladies out there who were, like me, kind of around my age at the time, probably like early 20s. And I mean, it's a whole gigantic industry like today. But more recently, like I'd say in the past like 5 to 7 years or so, I do go to local events here. I mean, like Nordstrom has an event that I'll go to pretty regularly. Normally they have it like twice a year, every 6 months, kind of one before summer. The one this year got canceled, but the last time I went was around like November, I think. It's like right before Christmas. So like all the good deals on, kits and gifts and whatever come out during that time. But a lot of like industry professionals, like brand directors, like are flown in here to talk about their brands. And that's what I think is like, it's really cool. Like I would suggest if anybody, is new to skincare, I mean, one, manage your wallet because you're going to want to buy everything. But two, if you, don't really have another way to get this kind of information, or you're like magazines kind of aren't working for me, there's way too many YouTube videos out there. At least this is a scaled down version where like only certain brands are coming. Not like there's hundreds of brands out there. They're not all showing up, but there's at least like 25, 30, maybe more. But then you can also try them out, that day in store. Like they have their little booths and stuff set up. So that's something that I felt like was pretty fun. And yeah, sometimes it's even like owners of the brand are coming out. It's not just like they're sending whoever out there. It's like, people who really, really know and specialize in their brand. So I mean, that's one of the ways that I've been learning about some of this today.
Yeah, there's a couple of different events that you've invited me to, but I just always I think what's stopping me is if I am sold this one brand and I'm paying, just say for instance, I'm paying astronomical prices for something that I could get at a drugstore, but there's nobody there to really tell me how, this will support my skin and it'll do whatever it needs to do, and or tell me what type of skin I have. But maybe there's an opportunity to go to one of those events, talk to somebody and see what they think about my skin, and then like try to find something very reasonable, because I don't want to pay astronomical prices. And sometimes those brands, like especially the owners coming out, they may be more of boutique type brands that are going to be, more expensive. And I'm just not at the point where I want to pay astronomical prices for, skincare. However, I also don't want to look like an old hag when I get older. So maybe it's worth it. I don't know. This is where I go back and forth in my mind. And I think I'm just getting in my own way, to be honest with you. And but everything I've tried, I just don't feel like it makes enough of an impact, because maybe I don't know what impact I'm looking for, you know what I mean, to continue being so disciplined about it. I'd rather just save the time and go to bed. As long as my face is clean, then let me just go to bed.
Yeah.
You
And
know what I
I think
mean?
that makes sense. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to mention, like, manage your wallet because only you know how much you're comfortable with spending. But I do think it's worth going to like get the knowledge. And I do the same thing. I like go get the knowledge from like this other brand that I'm not interested at all in purchasing. And then I'll go look for something similar somewhere else within like a range that I'm comfortable with.
Um,
But yeah.
that's a good tip.
Um, yeah. And so, like some of these more expensive brands, I'm kind of like, one of these days, but it's not today. Um, but yeah, and then you just kind of because at the end of the day, there's a lot of brands who are making similar products, and part of it is kind of like a preference thing, right? Or it's like that you like the name, or like you like the packaging, or whatever. Like it all goes into marketing at the end of the day.
Right.
And I'm not saying that it's all marketing and no product, right? Because some of these products, I mean, they're specializing in a certain thing, but I think, even beyond that, there's some brands that focus on certain other aspects. So, for example, there's some skincare brands like people might be concerned with like cruelty-free products, that kind of stuff, or vegan products, or companies out there who give back to X, Y, and Z kind of,
Right.
initiatives. And some of these brands do that. So, that could also play into like which one you want to buy.
That's true.
Um, mhm. So, shall we go into what's our current skincare routine today?
Sure. Maybe I should start because mine's
Okay.
more straightforward. So I wash my face in the shower at night. I take showers at night now. Unless I'm working out in the morning, then I'll take it in the morning. But whichever time of the day I take a shower, I wash my face. I used to use Shiseido. They had like a Invigorating or like a scrub. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's like their Pureness line. And that worked really well for us. But then my husband found an equivalent at Don Quixote out here, and it's a Japanese brand. It looks like it's spelling naive, but I'm not sure if that's the message that they're trying to give out. But have
Lost
you
in
heard of?
translation, I'm sure. But I've seen the brand. I don't know how to say it, but I've seen it in the store before.
So it definitely spells naive, in English, but I'm sure they're going for something else. So it's supposed to be like the equivalent, but not as expensive as Shiseido. And so we use that right now. I also have that St. Ives Invigorating Scrub. The Naive brand or whatever it's called doesn't have any kind of exfoliant in it. And so I get the St. Ives Invigorating Scrub just for like once a week when you can feel there's like a buildup of something on your skin. So I'll just use that just to kind of, refresh for the week. Sometimes for a while, I was using it almost every day because it just always felt like I just hadn't gotten everything off of my skin. But then you, Shelly, let me know that if you exfoliate every day, your skin's not given enough time to regenerate. And so some of those like acne scars are not going to dissipate as quickly as I would like. And I know it takes time. But so I started to use, what is it called? I don't even know. I just bought it. I was like, Shelly said it's good. I'm going to buy it. And it's some sort of like concentrated oil or something. Um, I can't remember what it's called.
Are you talking about a makeup remover? I know that's one thing that I was
Yeah, but
saying.
so like before you start washing your face is dry. You get a little bit of this like,
Yep,
what's it
it's
called?
like an oil removing, like it's an oil cleanser. Yep, and
Yes.
it's supposed to remove, so you're not using like makeup wipes to remove your makeup, but it dissolves all the makeup stuff on your face. Is
Yes,
that what you're using?
exactly, exactly. So I started using that, and that really worked. And then I would then wash my face in the shower, like normal. And what the test was, I would take one of those, like, how do you say it? Salicylic acid? Is that how you say it? Okay. Shelly's nodding yes. So I would take one of those and wipe my face with it. And if there was any makeup on it, I knew that that process didn't take everything off. But when I tested it out, it did. So that treatment pad that I used to wipe down my face didn't have any makeup on it. So that was working. And then I would just use the exfoliant once a week to, you know, just get the layers of skin off that had built up. So that's pretty much it. It's mostly my routine. Like I said, I used to use moisturizers that I would research, but after, a couple of weeks, I would just be like, well, this isn't really doing much for me, I feel. So I'm not going to take the time to do it. What about you, Shelley?
So I've actually scaled back on what I do to my skin now as compared to a little while ago. And truthfully, like now that I said that, I think it's only like I scaled back by one product.
Hey, scaling back is scaling back.
So I guess I'll start off like in the morning. Like in the morning, I'm pretty basic. I mean, so I tend to lean towards liking gel face washes rather than something that's creamy or anything like that because my skin, I would call my skin combination. Like I'm not super oily. I'm only oily around my nose and my forehead area, and that's not like it's not really really oily. Like it's only like depending on the weather, depending on the time of the month, that it's more oily than other days. So those more like creamy moisturizers are for people with dry skin. So my mom really likes those. So whenever I try, because I like to try a bunch of stuff, you can swing by my YouTube channel and see all the stuff that I buy from Sephora, Simple Casual Chic on YouTube. If I ever buy any of those things and I'm like, it for me it feels like there's a residue on my face, I'll like pass it over to my mom and I'll be like, you like this, you have drier skin than I do, it's going to make your skin feel good, it makes my skin feel like I didn't wash my face when I just did, right? So yeah, I normally tend to like gel cleansers right now. Ooh, I change it up so much. I don't even know what I'm using right now. But one that I would say that I like, I mean, Tempsy, this might be one that you might want to try. They sell it in like Target and all that kind of stuff, but it's CeraVe. And just make sure it's the one that looks kind of like light blue turquoise in color because that's the one for normal to oily skin. Because the other
Okay.
one will make you feel like you stuff stuff on your face. And
Okay.
that's the one that I would give my mom.
See, I don't think I would even notice if I cleansed my face and felt like, oh no, I have noticed that before. I know
Because then
exactly.
you're like trying to rinse it and you're like, there's still stuff
And your
there, but
hands are
there's
still
not.
slipping on your face.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like, and then I just feel like grimy or something. But
Yeah,
anyway, so,
I know what you're
so
talking about.
those, if you are oily, forget those. Just don't even waste your
Makes
time.
sense.
And then after I wash my face, I'll use well, normally it would be a gel moisturizer because, I mean, same thing, gel for me in the daytime because, it is hot and humid here in Hawaii, especially in the summertime, like we're approaching summer right now. Gel moisturizers, it's almost like it almost has a feel of like putting water on your face, only it like doesn't dry up, right? It stays on your face for a while. So normally I would use one of those, but right now I'm using a combination of a moisturizer sunscreen, which I'll be honest, I don't actually prefer. I like sunscreen to be on its own. I don't know why. It just feels a little bit different to me. But I am a sunscreen everyday user, and that also helps your dark spots not get darker. Because in a way, if you think about it, if you're in the sun, what are you doing getting tan? If you have a dark spot on your tan, you're tanning your dark spot, if that makes sense.
I mean, makes complete logical sense.
So I'm a huge sunscreen user. I've been using sunscreen every single day for maybe the past 10 years. But the sun is also very damaging. It's what causes wrinkles. It's causing, future spots to show up. So, at the end of the day, to be honest with you, Temsi, and kind of what you were mentioning, you're looking at your stepdad's, back then, his mom,
Yes.
and seeing her skin looking really young for her age. Like there's no way to tell, there's no way for me to clone myself and have myself not do any of these things and see how that worked out because I've
Right.
already been doing it. But I don't have any like fine lines or crow's feet or anything like that at 35. So I don't know, I'm going to say it's working. um, so that's basically what I do in the morning. I wash my face with some kind of gel cleanser. I put on probably some kind of gel moisturizer, and I put sunscreen on my face. Before, the one step I said I scaled back on my skincare steps. The one step I used to use that I don't do anymore is toner. But and to be honest with you, I don't know why. I think I just forgot toner existed and I stopped using it. But I used to religiously use toner before. But today I'm not. I have toner. I just forget it's there and I just skip over it for some reason. But that's pretty much what I do in the morning.
So what is the point of toner though? Because I was given that through the Shiseido line and I was like, I don't get it.
I think like for some people, and I think this is also like a philosophy change over time, like what is necessary, what is not. Some people may still like to use it. But for me, when I used to use toners more often is when I felt more oily around the nose forehead area, which like nowadays I just don't produce. I think, as you grow older, like, sorry, I mean, as you age, like things just change. Your skin's just not doing the same thing that it was doing before. So I think that's an element to that because when my skin used to be really oily, I used to use toner to help like manage that a little bit more, but I don't get as oily as I used to. So I'm just kind of like, I don't think I really need it.
Gotcha.
But some of them also have kind of like, I mean, same thing. It has like skin, like, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like balancing properties. Like it'll kind of like help your skin balance out throughout the day.
Okay.
So, I think my example was just like oil production, but it could be something else to somebody else.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, so that's my daytime. At nighttime,
Oh my goodness.
I wash my face pretty much same gel cleanser. And now I have to think. So, and I usually do that in the shower.
Okay.
So if I am wearing some kind of makeup, like earlier today, I was filming some videos for YouTube. I will use that same sort of like oil cleansing balm that Tempsy was mentioning. We probably don't use the same brand, but essentially the same concept, right? Like I either use one that's like straight up oil or one that's like in a solid, like sort of chapstick looking form that you have to like scoop out of a tub with your hand. And that
That's the
just
one
like
you told
breaks
me
every down.
about.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
So that like breaks everything down, gets all the makeup off your face. I normally don't wear a lot of makeup, period. And what I found personally for me, and maybe this is one of the reasons why I didn't break out a lot when I was younger, is I was never really putting foundation on my face. Like I mentioned, the ones that were out back then were not the right skin tone for me. And so I think, you know, maybe that helped, right? When people are
Right.
trying to like cover up their acne, they're putting more foundation on it and it's further irritating your skin. But I never really wore any foundation.
Right.
So I do notice that days like today where I'm filming, like today I'm actually using a very, very light layer of foundation and a little bit of concealer, like very little. But other times when I'm filming and I wear more, after I'm done a few hours later, I start to like have bumps underneath my skin. So that's how I know my skin does not like foundation.
Wow, it's very reactive.
Yeah. So that's why I'm like, sunscreen, I'm good. Moisturizer, sunscreen, that's all the quote unquote makeup I put on my face. I mean, I do my eyebrows and that kind of stuff, but that's not like slathering stuff all over my face. Right.
Right.
So, in cases where I'm like wearing heavier makeup, I do use like an oil based cleanser, wash with the gel after just to like get all that oily stuff off your face too. And then when I get out of the shower, I'll do an essence. I'll do an essence, which I found helps to keep my skin hydrated. So, like you're mentioning that. So, a lot of times, just based on videos I've watched and things that I've read, people who are oily are not necessarily hydrated. Hydrated is like water, oil is not water, right? So having that essence helps to keep my skin hydrated throughout the night. Some people use essence during the day too. I just don't. Honestly, I use Escape too, and that stuff's super expensive. But
What's
after
Essence?
that,
I've never even heard of Essence before.
essence, it basically looks like a water, but it's like a concentrated water. Like there's like ingredients in it that are concentrated. So this one in particular that I use, SK2, it's a Japanese brand. And so this is one of like the beauty directors that come down at that Nordstrom event.
Oh,
Right. And they basically talked about the way that their key ingredient, it's called Patera, was discovered is they're like these old Japanese ladies working at like this sake factory, and they would like, put their arms in like the sake to like make it, like whatever they're doing, like mixing it around, or I don't know how you
hmm.
make sake, but just as an example, right? And their arms were like so youthful. They were like
Oh,
old ladies, their
interesting.
arms, because they were just soaking in this stuff like day
Wow.
in and day out. But you could see the aging on their face because they're like they're older, right? Like, they weren't like slapping it on their face too, but basically that's how it was discovered. Their arms were like so young, their skin was in such great condition. So basically they like harnessed that essence, that, ingredient, dropped it in essence, and I'm like throwing it all over my face at night
Oh,
in
all right.
moderation because it's expensive. Like I think a bottle, I don't know, like I think it's about 3 ounces. I don't know, but it's like 200 something dollars.
Oh,
Yeah, but
wait,
it
but
lasts a long time because you don't need a lot.
is this different than serum?
Yeah.
Okay. See, this is why,
So
like, there's too many
yeah,
things.
I know. I mean, there is a lot of things. So essence is something that I saw my mom using growing up. It's literally like the consistency of water. Like it's very like fluid, and you
Okay.
just kind of drop like 5 drops or so in your hand. It has a little like it's not a big opening. It's a controlled like,
Okay. Yep.
when you're
Like
dropping in your
Tabasco
hand.
sauce.
Yeah, basically. Exactly. It's like a bigger version of that. And
Okay.
then you like put it on your face. And then after that, I use some kind of moisturizer. So depending on the time of year, right now it's summer. So I'm using a gel moisturizer. Sometimes in the winter, this never happened to me before, except for the past like couple of years, my cheeks will get dry in the winter, which is weird because I'm like, we still live in
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii. It's still humid. The water is right there and the sun is out. Like stuff's evaporating like
Huh.
outside. I shouldn't
Right.
be having this dry face problem. So in the winter, I will use a slightly more creamy, not full on cream, but a slightly more creamy consistency moisturizer because of that like dry cheek issue. I'm just like, ugh. And that's to me is how I know that I can't go without moisturizer anymore. That to me is telling me that moisturizer is actually helping my skin because if I don't, then my skin feels, when you're dry and it feels like it's stretching. Like that's
Yes.
how I feel now when I don't use moisturizer. Um,
So your skin's not regenerating the amount of moisture that it used to, and so you're just having to
Well, I
make up for
think,
that.
I don't think it ever was. Like, I don't
Oh.
think it ever was necessarily doing that. I think my mind was tricking myself thinking oil was moisturizing my skin, but oil doesn't
Oh.
really moisturize your skin. It's like oil. Like, your skin's like, I'm dry. I need to produce something. And it's producing oil because your dry skin can't produce water.
Interesting.
Like, you have to drink water, right? Like,
Yeah.
nothing produces, like, rain produces water, but not even really because it's recycled. Like we're not, you know what I mean? It's
Yep.
evaporating and then raining.
Yep.
But yeah, so some like usually after Essence, I will use a serum. So normally my go-to serum is something vitamin C related because they say it's like the sort of like solve all your problems kind of ingredient. So it is supposed to help with smoothing out your skin tone. It can help like reduce the acne scarring, which is basically like smoothing out your skin tone. But it does also have a lot of, vitamin C is antioxidants. Antioxidants supposed to be anti-aging. So
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just trying to look young forever. I don't know. But yeah, so
I
after
mean,
I
that's not a
do,
bad goal.
so yeah, after I have that all on my face, the essence and the serum, the moisturizer, then I just do eye cream and then I call it a day. Something that
Oh,
I'm trying to
okay.
do, something that I'm trying to do more often is using masks because I have a lot of masks. I tend to buy them, but I don't use them.
I have a lot of masks too, and I don't buy them. People just give them to
Oh,
me. And I feel so bad because, like, I appreciate that you thought of me, but at the same time, like, I'm never going to use the thing. I
hmm.
think I've used maybe 10 masks in my whole life.
Yeah, I haven't used a lot either. But I did find that I do find that times where I've used it is in conjunction with maybe like wellness and relaxing. So I will like
Mm.
put a mask. You can't really do anything when it's on your face, right? So then I just kind of like sit around and like veg out and like set a timer for 10 minutes when I need to like take it
Meditate.
off, you know? So that's kind of the way that I use masks. But yeah, I wish I used them more. I do exfoliate a little bit. So it's funny. So if anyone who is super duper into skincare is listening and they heard that you use St. Ives, they might have like fell off their chair or
I
something.
know. I know it has a bad rep.
It has a bad rep. The one that I use is it has sugar granules in it as an exfoliator, so you have to use it a little bit quickly, and that's one of the reasons why people like sugar because it's gentle because it's not in its hard form for very long. Like
Hmm.
once water hits it, it's like dissolving.
Right. Hmm.
So that's something that I'm using, but I am looking into more like chemical exfoliants because it's not abrasive. It's not like a gritty thing that you're rubbing on your face. It's almost like an essence kind of step that you would throw in that through, whatever ingredients are in it that are not abrasive are kind of taking away that dead skin stuff. So, I mean, still researching that. Like we said, my skin is a little bit reactive. So
Yeah.
I just don't want to just throw anything on my face. And truthfully, we kind of mentioned like proactive and some of those acne treatment regimens earlier on in this episode. those do not work for me. Like they like tear up my skin. Like if I use it 2 times in a row, I'm breaking out in a rash. So I just cannot use
Yikes.
stuff like that. So yeah, I stay away. I try to find things that are gentle. I honestly, I thought my skin was a little bit more
Resilient.
tough, yeah, than that. But because I think it was right before my wedding. Don't do what I did. Don't try a lot of new skincare right before your wedding. That was dumb of me. I don't know why I did that. But I was having some weird like breakout situation. So I did get like a thing to put on it, but it was too harsh for my skin. I had to stop using it. Um, so, I mean, that's my only thought about, acne related problems. I mean, it may help some people and it does not help others.
Mhm.
So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, for you, Tempsy, I'd say like, yeah, use that oil-based cleanser. I'm glad to hear that it's helping get your makeup off. So
Yep.
that's cool.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I do think it's a good idea that you're washing your face with some kind of, actual like soapy sort of, like sudsy cleanser afterwards, because then you take all
Right.
that oily stuff off. And then, yeah, I mean, if your skin is still oily like today or, whenever, I would say like a gel moisturizer. And I would try to use it for like 2 weeks to a month and then like consistently and then stop using it one day and see if your skin feels dry. Because then for me, that's kind of like saying like, one, it's supposed to help manage your oily problem because your skin's not trying to make it not dry.
Hmm.
But two, I think to me, my opinion would be that if your skin feels dry when you're not using it, then it's been doing something for you.
I think I just haven't been paying attention to what my skin feels like.
Mm,
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
if I were to do a true experiment and kind of make sure that I put it on every night or whenever I'm supposed to put it on, and did that for 2 months, and then really like sat down, looked at my skin, and thought about, okay, how does my skin feel? I'm going to stop today. I'm going to think about it, the next couple of days. I'm
Mhm.
going to check in. Then I might find out what, how my skin is. But um,
Yeah. And never try like a bunch of stuff at one time. Like always try to do it one at a time because if you're trying too many things and something happens, you won't know which one did it to you if you're like trying like 20 new things in the same day, right?
yep.
Um
I know
but
all about that, man, because when you have a kid and they start eating solid foods, you have to give them one thing at a time so that, if they are
which
allergic
one
to
is not
something,
working?
yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
exactly. So,
And kind of like going back a little bit to some of these brands and stuff that maybe we know friends who are selling those things and whatnot. I mean, I think it's cool that, they're taking the leap to, in a way, one, try to like have their own business. Cause I think that's the point of some of these
yep,
things, right?
absolutely.
I do see that friends who I have a lot of friends who are, doing all this stuff. And I do see that there seems to be some success from their customers or people who they are working with on these things. So, I mean, I think, for people out there, it's just up to you on what you feel comfortable with. I'll be super honest, and I have told these friends this too. I think I'm too much of a skincare junkie to use some of these things, right? Because I already know what I like. I already know what works for me. I already know the next product I want to try.
Mm,
Um, and so, I have this long list of things already. Um, I'm just not swayed the other way, right?
right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm on the opposite end where I don't know what I want. I'm kind of not like really overwhelmed, but there's an overwhelming feeling when I think about going to get more information about from some of our friends about these products. And then I'm just going to buy it without really knowing what I'm getting. And I know that they wouldn't do that to me. It's just, I don't know that I have the wherewithal to say, hey, but wait, this is something that about my skin that I know because I don't really know.
Yeah,
So,
and I do think that it depends on the person who is selling whatever they're selling, and what their relationship is with skincare as well, right? And how much they know about it or don't.
right.
So I think that's something to keep in mind as, any of us are shopping for anything really. But oh, I just remembered. I was going to tell you. So I think I mentioned like a little while ago, like, when everything is all well and we can all go out and do whatever we want to again.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be really interesting for you to go to a Kiehl's store and have them. They have this. It's this really quick thing, and I've done it a couple of times before. But they have this device that measures the hydration in your skin. So they just it kind of looks like a forehead thermometer, if you will. They
Okay.
stick it on your face and they push a button and then it gives you a number, right? And it basically tells you how much actual hydration
Oh,
is in your skin. And there's this other step that you do. It's these two little tabs. They're maybe about an inch big, and it has an end that has this round paper kind of thing on it. But they stick two of these on your face, not stick, but they're putting that on your face with their hands, right? So one goes on your forehead, one goes on your cheek, and it's to show how much oil production you have in those two spots where, cheek is normally dry, forehead is normally oily, and it shows you what's going on there. And then they kind of recommend some products to you based on that. So not
but
saying you
what if
got to go
it's
and
just
buy
the
them, but it's
weather?
interesting. Partially it could partially
Yeah,
be the weather. Um,
but just
but
try it.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting because if your hydration levels are super low anyway, then it's that's not the weather. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um,
So it's
yeah,
funny that you mentioned that because I also saw a, a sponsorship or like a promotion for something called Proven Skin on Instagram. And I was intrigued by it because it's sort of like an evaluation of your skin. You take like a little questionnaire, you do a little questionnaire, and then they recommend what it is that you should try. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. But if I think about it, it's like, well, I can't even explain or articulate to somebody what kind of skin I have. How would I even be able to fill out an evaluation form to tell? So I didn't do it, but it did seem interesting to me that they had kind of gotten it down to a science to where they could ask specific questions and then kind of from those questions could determine what might work best for you. And so if I get to the point where I can kind of truly evaluate my skin and understand it a little bit better, maybe by doing the experiment that you mentioned or going to whatever store that was, what was it called again?
Kiehl's,
Heels? Or
Kiehl's, Kiehl apostrophe
oh,
S.
oh, okay, okay. That's an Almona. Oh,
Yep.
okay. I think
Hmm.
I've seen that. Yeah, so, maybe we'll do some experimentation. I wish somebody could just look at my skin and then be like, okay, here's all the things that you should use, but somebody that's not committed to one brand. I think I'm talking about you.
Yeah.
So
No,
if you could
I
just
think
buy all the things that I need, and then I'll just Venmo them, the money to you, and then we'll be good. No,
that's
I'm just kidding.
hilarious.
But that would be ideal for, I
Yeah.
just,
I mean, I feel like I'm slowly recommending products to you.
yeah, yeah. So
Hmm.
just keep doing that.
Alrighty. Well, I thought that was pretty interesting from my perspective anyway. Skincare is something that I'm pretty interested in, but
I think it was a really good conversation because I think there are a lot of people out there like me, and then there are a lot of people out there like you, or there's a lot of people out there who are selling these kinds of products. And if they were to listen to this, they would be like trying to shake us through the headphones, being like, use this, you know what I mean?
hmm.
So it's just there's so many different perspectives when it comes to skincare that I feel like we in this conversation have two really diverse perspectives. And so I think it was really interesting. But let us know, for those of you listening, let us know which side you're on. Are you kind of dumbfounded by skincare like I am? Or do you love trying new things like Shelly and you feel like you have a good understanding of your skin? Or maybe you have some questions for Shelly. I mean, she does a fashion and lifestyle vlog and she reviews, you've done empties on skincare products, like reviews on those things. You've done reviews on new products that you've just tried. I mean, it runs the gamut. So if you have questions for us, just let us know.
Yeah. Also, if you have any product recommendations or anything like that, I think that would be really fun to hear about too.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, thanks for listening to this episode of The Outright Effect. You can find us at theoutrighteffect.com. Follow us on our social media accounts on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, all at The Outright Effect. And you can also reach out by emailing us at theoutrighteffect@gmail.com. See you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.